A few years ago, you came out with a record that pissed a lot of people off. It was the Tupac Must Die. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what was your motivation for making that record?
So what's crazy to me, right, is when I first got in this business, I was just a PCP dealer and a gangbanger, right? Again, I was articulate enough. I never drank, I never smoked weed, so I kept all my wits. And like I was able to ask questions to certain homies to learn about them. And then participating helped me get a very clear understanding of what was happening in the streets. A lot different than pretty much every artist that's ever was in hip hop. You know what I mean? I don't think none of them are as in tune with what's going on the streets from this perspective as I am. And around 2012, I started to go down this rabbit hole of just learning about hip hop. My DJ Head, pushed me down this rabbit hole, and I started learning about tempos and tempos of beats. I didn't know the difference with BPM. I couldn't tell you the difference between a Scarface song and a Snoop Dogg song when it came to rhythm at all. I couldn't hear it. It was just good music. It's good music. And I fell down this rabbit hole and I was starting to learn so much. And I started off just learning about BPMs, and then it started being about sampling and how the genres mattered, how we focused on funk, how the South kind of had this blues, how the Midwest had R&B, how the how the East really embodied jazz. You know what I mean? A lot of the hip hop. And it wasn't perfect, but it was close. And I started learning about what's a record and separating the difference of what's a record and a song. How do you make it, this kind of this own world and this really simple thing that has layers, so it's brilliant. And marketing, was one of the last things. But learning about hip hop was really different. A lot of people don't trip off hip hop. Hip hop is very much street urban culture. It's there's a big argument within the culture that hip hop is black, and it's not. Black people are the face of hip hop, but it's not just black. Like street urban culture, punk rock is street urban culture. Punk rock is how you get Eminem as a rapper. You know what I mean? That same street urban culture. There's places that are, densely populated, crime ridden, where sometimes white people live. In New York, white people live in the same densely populated poor places that everybody else do, just like the Bay, just not in LA or in other places. So as I start learning about hip hop and expressing that street urban culture that's Los Angeles, I realized what my job was as a hip hop artist, as a contributor. And I realized it was giving the street urban perspective of mainstream events. It's like we don't say what's up. We don't say hi, we say what's up. We don't say, hey, friend, we say what's up, cuz. That's language. We don't wear suits and stuff. We wear Pendletons and Dickies, fashion. And as I start understanding it was culture, breaking down the aspects of culture, morality came into play. So I was just thinking, what's the most mainstream thing that involved a gang member? What would be something that the whole world would know about that I can express it through the mind of a gang member, that I can give you cultural revelations of a gang member's mind state? Like, this is how much thought cuz went into this shit. It wasn't like some nigga or this, that, and the third. It was really deep. The whole thought process came to that. And it became two things. Either I was going to rap about how the 92 riots started, right? And how the A-Trays, all of those guys got on Reginald Denny based off of their trauma and how they was feeling in the world. Or it was explaining Orlando Anderson's position, right? In theoretical, this murder of this high profile, super, important person to the culture that is hip hop, Tupac Shakur. And as I started writing, this idea came out better. I could explain Baby Lane's positioning way different than anybody else's. You know what I mean? I know what that's like to get jumped. I know the pressures and the jokes we make about each other when it's somebody that we feel is outside of the lifestyle when it happens. You know what I'm saying? So it became the only thing I could do at that time. You know what I'm saying? To really like have a brick in hip hop. It was that serious. It was that much thought. Like, that's why it sounds the way it sounds.
Okay. And the video that you did, It got a ton of views on YouTube. A lot of people, discussed it, talked about it. Did you get any backlash just due to how detailed the video was? Because I know there's always been debate as to, if Trey got his chain taken or not, and how the whole fight at the Lakewood Mall went down. And I know in the video, you told it a certain way that, some people said maybe didn't happen or did happen. But with the video specifically, did you get a lot of backlash from people?
Yeah. Not so much for the actual like facts of the video, but just literally the galls to shoot the video. So I've heard both. I've heard the chain got took and the chain didn't get took. But to me, I believe obviously the chain didn't get took, right? But does the story really make sense at that point? Then like if I don't express it like to where like I actually put it in a much more like an understandable way for the average person. Because if the chain doesn't, the fight wasn't over the chain. Like in real time, they all know that the fight wasn't over the chain. The fight is just all of us went to Lakewood Mall to squabble. That's just what we did. We go to shop and you'll see somebody there and it's this kind of silly pride you have in the city. You know what I mean? Poor people carry their pride high. So the one thing you want to be is the most dominant motherfucker in the room. So every gang on the east side would go to the Lakewood Mall. We would go to the movies and get in fights with whoever was there, not on purpose, but to establish dominance of presence. So the fight wasn't over the chain in the first place, nor was it somebody got jumped. It was like a few people versus more people. You know what I'm saying? So to simplify the story to the average consumer so they can consume it, you make it about that. But again, it was never about the chain in the first place. And everybody involved would tell you that. It wasn't about the chain. It wasn't like he saw Cousin was like, oh, I want to fight you and get his chain. Like that's just a horrible, fucked up thing. That's not true. They fought because this is what motherfuckers do at the Lakewood Mall. It's what we do. We clash. So I think I made it digestible to where people can actually understand and have some kind of like, oh, I can see how that happened. Outside of that, if it's based off the story that I believe that the chain didn't get took, why the fuck would he have a reason to fight him at the Lakewood Mall? I mean, why would they have a reason to fight him at the casino? Like, how do you tell that story and then put Pac in a place to where you can understand him, standing up for one of his homeboys? Outside of that, it looked like he just would have butted in some shit that just don't make sense. The Death Row chain gave it context, it gave it depth, it gave it layers, it gave you more reasons to feel connected to, the situation. But without it, it becomes like you just in the middle of some gang shit. And that's not kind of what my job was to portray in his situation. It was to portray Tupac as somebody that was very much involved with the culture, but more down for his friends and more down for the record label that pretty much rescued him to some degree, you know what I mean, from prison. I thought I did a great job of it, but, obviously it's a bunch of new Tupac, they not fanatics. It's like how motherfuckers feel about Jesus. Jesus died, man. You feel me? Motherfuckers love him. But they didn't love him enough to when he was hanging on the cross for 7 days to go risk their life to take him down. And that's how I feel about Tupac, where when I was growing up, we really was Tupac fans. He was a great influence, great artist, everything. But motherfuckers didn't show Pac this much love. I remember having All Eyes on Me and girls at my high school talking about like, oh, he's a rapist. Oh, you listen to that rapist? Like that, if you was keeping up with the story, that's definitely not how it happened, but that's what I'm saying. But then he dies and everybody is just over the top. Oh, yeah, Tupac this, tattoos. Like, y'all bitch ass niggas love dead black men. They hated Muhammad Ali alive. They hated Tupac alive. They hated Jesus Christ alive. They just hate motherfuckers when they alive. But then when they die, you know what I mean? Like, look at Floyd. Floyd Mayweather get the same hate. Let that motherfucker die tragically. Man, motherfuckers gonna be getting TB, tattoos, and all kind of shit, man. So I think I told the story in a way that people can digest it and understand Tupac's position. But yeah, it was different things. I heard from Trey, he felt some kind of way about it. But my thing was like, nigga, y'all not cussing out the niggas that made the movie. Y'all not cussing out the niggas that made these dumbass corny TV shows. You gonna cuss out the one nigga that you know for sure is just like you from this shit? Feel me? That shit crazy to me. How you talking? Why you calling me? You ain't called none of these other niggas who done made all these TV shows and all this cornball shit they make, but I'm really telling it how we live. So I expected it. It's all love though. It's all love. I felt how I felt about it, but again, like once I talked to him, it was an understanding to some degree.